Buon Natale, Buona Feste, Auguri, and welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. It's our Christmas special, kind of. Our last show before Christmas. As always, my name's Rory, and I'm joined. We're all back. We've got the gang back together and joined by my very good friends, Adam and Andrea. I'm going to start with Andrea. How you doing, man?
Good, thank you. I've decided on the 22nd December to actually get into the Christmas spirit. I've literally just done the decorations, Santa hat on. It's always the same every year. I just get into it too late. People start in October. Yeah, get into the spirits. I'm enjoying it.
No, I'm definitely I'm further towards you than other people. I've been that kind of humbug guy complaining about Christmas music in November, I'll be honest. But definitely in the spirit now. Adam, how you doing, man?
Yeah, very good, thank you. I got the Christmas vibe last weekend because I was embracing minus 22-degree kind of temperatures as I was in Lapland. So I was definitely seeing the big man, and definitely wasn't Aurelio De Laurentiis as a certain interview went out over the weekend. But yeah, that all good, thank you. Rory, how is things in Milan?
Yeah, all good, man. As you can see, visually, you can see I'm warming up for Puglia. I'm in my Bardi shirt. I've got my Pugliese beer. I'm off down south tomorrow. So definitely, like, I've taken the big breath and I'm, like, officially on holiday. Like, when I left the school on Saturday morning after I finished, I was leaving with a colleague and he just turned around to me, he was like, second best day of the year, this, breaking up for Christmas, only bettered by when we break up for summer. I was like, no, you're absolutely right. So definitely in the holiday spirit now. I'm ready to start celebrating. But we do have lots of Serie A football to celebrate as well. Lots of goals, actually, quite a few big scoring games. We're going to be talking about the game that has just finished because, guys, especially for you, we are doing a Sunday record. So Atalanta have just beaten Empoli 3-2. We'll be talking about Roma's massive win at home against Parma as they put 5 past them. Venezia getting a huge win against Cagliari, and Napoli again scraping a win but delivering Vieira his first defeat as Genoa manager. And then we'll be giving you a big roundup of all the fixtures before we take a look at what we think could be some clever transfer moves in January. So, guys, we're going to take a very quick break, and when we come back, we'll be talking all things Serie A. We'll see you then. And we're back. Atalanta 3, Empoli 2. And once again, Atalanta leave it late to get all the points. But it is, of course, Charles de Ketelaere, who delivers the win for La Dea. Adam, how big a season is this guy having? It seems like every week he seems to impress more and more. And Milan get redder and redder in embarrassment from letting him go.
Definitely. I mean, he was so influential last season even. But yeah, I think just the fact that Gasperini has been able to implement kind of a rotation with this squad has really helped and aided this season. And although we're kind of coming to a period where it's probably describable that Atalanta haven't been in the kind of deep ways of working in terms of how fluid their football have been, they're still getting results, and that is, you know, something that Gasperini can be pleased about going into this period, because I think if you think about where traditionally Atalanta do better, they seem to be much more culpable or in a better position in the second half of the season when it comes to this. So I think this is really positive shoots. I think the one thing to allude to, though, is Retegui coming off after about the 24-minute mark. So that could be the warning signs. But having said that, Scamacca is in training. So it wouldn't surprise me if we suddenly see the emergence of him and him maybe contributing in the goal-scoring charts as well. But yeah, really positive from this point of view. And De Ketelaere showing potentially the Milan faithful what they could have had, right?
Well, Andrea, there's a real feeling around this Atalanta squad at the moment, and this is one of those games that easily, in years past, they would have just settled for a 2-2 or possibly would have lost it in previous years. But this team just do not give up, and they kept going, and right until the very end, they were pushing, they were pressing. And in the end, the quality just told. Because this Empoli team are having a pretty good season, but Atalanta just refused to let it go out.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the precise point that they would have drawn this in previous years. This time around, you can see the players coming off the bench. You know, Retegui getting injured was a massive blow. De Ketelaere stepped up. You've got real big players. Zaniolo still had a good game as well. He did get booked, was a bit off at times, but he had a good game. Typical Zaniolo. But no, they've got the quality and depth, and that's the key as well. Like even Rui Patricio was there as well. Like you've got a complete whole depth of changing team. And to be honest, the draw to Empoli wouldn't be the end of the world either, because Empoli, like you said, they've been really good. And Esposito and Colombo together have just been a really dangerous pair up front against any team in Serie A, to be honest. So, but no, they got over the line and they always stick at it and they always manage to find a way. I genuinely thought this was the game that they might slip up when it was at the 2-2, but no, they still find a way. And again, it goes back to we've talked about it before, Atalanta in these games where they've scored like a last minute winner, like the Milan game previously as well. They've found a way time and time again. And when you start to back up these type of wins like this is when you're talking serious competitors for the league, and the conversation seriously has to be even more in talk now.
No, well, it's being talked about widely now in the papers here, and people are like, is this the year? Is this the year that Gasperini can deliver it? Like, I think we've talked about the strength in depth, and we've talked about, the fact that they have got options off the bench. They did concede 2 goals, and this week they didn't play, so they left Hein on the bench, like he wasn't available, and they brought in Kolasinac instead alongside Jim City and Kusunu, and maybe that was where a little bit of the kind of fragility came from in terms of letting Empoli get 2 goals or allowing them to get 2 goals. But Adam, like the strength in depth is still there, and the defence, that's still a pretty solid go. And if you've got attackers that you've got, then maybe you can afford to give them the rest, right?
Definitely. I think I've already alluded it to this point a few kind of episodes ago, but I think the kind of opportunity there is for a player like Lazar Samardzic now to kind of come through to fruition now. And I wonder if he's still finding his feet there, having to come off the bench and have an impact in the same way that some of the other players are having. So I think this is the opportunity for those kind of players, especially when rumours are still rife around Edison and where he'll be come January as well. So I think there's a huge opportunity for Samardzic to really start stepping up to the plate. But I think the fact that we've got to talk about Giorgio Scalvini potentially coming back into the fold as well. It's insane when we're talking about the depth that we've already alluded to, but those kind of players wouldn't have been available for Atalanta in previous seasons. For them to be now available at this point in the season will feel like a brand new signing. And when I was kind of alluding to like potential targets, I kind of went, they don't actually need anyone because they've got such good depth. And unless there is a move in January window, I can't see any need for Gasperini or Atalanta to spend any money, because who do you feasibly go and get that could maybe give them the potential to add that bit of quality that they haven't already got? I'm struggling to really think about maybe areas that they could improve on. So I think that goes to show you how good a bit of business they did in the summer window, and the fact that they have got that depth across the squad. So a lot of credit for the way they've gone about it, really.
No, absolutely. And as you said, like with players like Scalvini, maybe Scamacca, they'll be rushing him back a little bit now, depending on how bad Retegui's injury is. But with a player like Scalvini and the injury he's had, they have the opportunity to not rush him back as well. It can be like he can be brought in slowly, they can manage it properly, and they're not like desperately throwing him on straight into 70-minute, 90-minute performances, right? So they're in a really, really strong position. But I did want to talk a little bit about Empoli, because they're quietly having a very good season. Like in the big games, they don't tend to do very well against the bigger teams. Like they've had a few bruising results against the likes of Inter and Lazio and Napoli. But they're very good at beating the teams around them and targeting games, like beating the teams below them, knowing where they can collect points. And Andrea, you kind of alluded to Colombo and Esposito, but they've got 2 very good players there that are having quietly very good seasons, and the Empoli fans will be hoping that it continues to be quiet, right? Because I think people are starting to look towards them.
Yeah, definitely. Those in particular, I think Esposito, just the technical play that he has in the build-up, I think is exceptional as well. I mean, this guy, I think he hasn't really had the chance at Inter, and I think Empoli now you can see that the player he's becoming. And it's been a few years now where it's kind of been, up and down, but now you can see clear that he's got the potential. Colombo as well. I think they just work perfect together. It almost seems to be like that kind of big target man, and then like that kind of like almost like a false line playmaker kind of guy, but also can chip in with the goals as well. But you've got 2 strikers there who want to prove themselves, and I think that at a team like Empoli, who just you're going to give them the opportunity, and they have like that freedom to express themselves. You're just going to see the best out of them, and yeah, I think we're going to see this continue throughout the season for sure. And this is going to be the biggest reasons why they score enough goals and they win enough games to stay up. Really, I think so. Yeah, they look really. It's really encouraging right now for Empoli.
Absolutely, and I really like Anjurin in
Yeah,
midfield
Yeah.
as well. I think he had a really good performance again today. Only 23 years old, young English midfielder, really thriving in this kind of environment. Again, as you said, like not as much pressure as if you come into one of the big teams, but space to develop. And I was really impressed by him. I think he's had quite a few good performances this year. There was a moment where the often not talked about Scot in Serie A, Liam Henderson, had a particularly egregious dive that he didn't get booked for, which I did find quite entertaining. But he's always a player that seems to have an impact. He got an assist today. Adam, he's a player that kind of quietly gets about his business, but I think we need to give him a bit of the Scottish Serie A love as well, right?
We do. He's been kind of there or thereabouts, right? Embracing Italian life, but quietly, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think possibly a lot to do with the fact that he's at Empoli and obviously the circumstances at Empoli. If we think about even last season, they had that kind of miraculous kind of save from relegation fight with Davide and Nicola. And I think that kind of precedence helped them in terms of the stability that Roberto De Versa has kind of implemented this season. What I wanted to call out actually was the defensive line as well as Vasquez in goal. I think he's had some really good performances this season. That's really helped them win points this season. Shmele as well, really commanding in terms of the defensive line alongside the other two as well. So I think from my point of view, a lot of credit has to go to De Versa as well for kind of going about it quite quietly as well. I think he's gone very much under the radar. To see Empoli still in that kind of top half of the table is quite a good achievement. I think we've been used to seeing Empoli very much at the bottom of it. So to see Empoli still at this point, kind of hovering in that mid-table mix, I think that's a huge achievement for Roberto De Versa and Empoli in that respect. Because Empoli don't spend a lot of money. They're probably the least amount spenders in terms of transfer window. And they probably got one of the smaller transfer budgets in the league as well. We've been saying for a number of seasons, Rory, about they could do with a relegation just to reset, the club itself. But yeah, really going under the radar and overachieving in many respects for me.
Well, the Empoli always have they've always had very good goalkeepers. The amount of goalkeepers that have come through that club, like if you look at Vicario was there, Elia Caprile has been there, I think Skorupski was there for a bit, right? They've had quite a few goalkeepers come through that club. So it's always worth keeping an eye on who's in between the sticks for them because they do manage to target that very, very well. So a good season for Empoli overall, but an even better one for Atalanta. I was kind of arguing with some colleagues at work this week because I told them I put a little bit of money on Atalanta. They were all Inter fans and they were very angry with me at the fact that I'd apparently lost faith. So I'm still hoping that Atalanta can get it done. It'll be great to see whether they can or not. But let's leave that game there for now. And let's move down towards, let's go to the title challengers who managed to scrape another win again. They just got it over the line. Genoa 1, Napoli 2. This was a little bit uncomfortable at the end. Andrea Meret was forced into some really big saves. Let's start with Genoa before we talk Napoli. They are showing, even though this is their first loss, right? They are showing signs of improvement and really gave Napoli a game here, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think Vieira's starting to see like the certain kind of players he kind of likes in the team, and they're kind of following a really well-structured system, and they're making it difficult for teams. And I know Napoli haven't been the greatest at scoring goals and dominating in the attacking third, but they still managed to kind of shut them out quite a lot in these games and in the recent games as well. And that was a worry before because they were leaking too many goals, and it's kind of been a bit more stable, let's say, but not there yet. But at least some signing towards kind of that as well. But yeah, I think positive there is that they're going to continue. If they continue the way they are, they can pick up these points. But it's still a long way to go. And it's just now, the only question I have is that the manager bounce has kind of gone now. When you lose that one game, so it's like, does it turn the other way? That's the only question I'll have, even though there's positive signs. But for sure, there's some positivity at least for Genoa to have for now.
And that's now Pinamonti's 6th goal of the season alongside 1 assist. We kind of give him a little bit of stick, but Adam is kind of quietly going about his business, and he's definitely the main threat for Genoa if they're going to keep themselves out of trouble, right?
Definitely. I think obviously they are looking broadly at adding to their options in January. There's already been rumours of Patrick Bamford potentially being courted for a move. I know this was really wild because I saw it linked at the same time in the same breath as Wrexham as well. So, clearly he's got a
that
huge
kind of sums up
choice there.
Serie A's budgets, doesn't it, really?
I don't know if he would necessarily be the kind of person to have alongside Pinamonti. I think a lot of credit to Pinamonti for the way he's gone about his business. He kind of started his trend prior to Vieira entering the club anyway, because he did it under Gilardino in those kind of dwindling days of Gilardino's reign. And yeah, I think a lot of credit for the fact that he still carried on with that kind of form that he had. I think there's been a lot of noise around Pinamonti because he's had so many big money transfer moves. When he moved from Inter to Sassuolo, it was kind of seen as like, that's a hell of a lot of money that was spent on him, and he couldn't do enough to keep them up at that season, despite being their top goal scorer. And again, this season, a lot more pressure. Obviously, it's a loan deal in comparison, so it's not an actual transfer. But I think there's that kind of question mark. Is he good enough to step up to the next level? I think everyone kind of sees him as a established Serie A striker, but nothing more. And I think that's the kind of stigma that he's got to get around if he wants to maybe force himself into future Italian national squads, for example. He needs to raise his level. But I'm full of credit because there's not many Italian strikers right now like scoring lots of goals. So there's something about him. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the game itself, XG wise, Genoa had the better of Napoli in this game, and it was very evident despite the kind of first 22 minutes where Napoli go into a 2-0 lead. Genoa created a lot of chances, especially in that second half. But I just think it's all about getting really clear-cut kind of moments. And I think that's where Genoa are struggling, that they're doing the typical get the ball into the box and hope for the best kind of attitude. And even Balotelli had a shot from distance that was tipped onto the post, for example. These are the kind of moments that they just need a little bit more quality in that kind of third half of the pitch. And you never know. I'm feeling a bit more confident about Genoa's chances staying up anyway, because that's 6 games unbeaten. That's really positive. And, I think Vieira will get the opportunity because, especially with the background piece, the 7-7 group have now been taken out of the equation now. There's a new ownership structure going on. So potentially going into January, they've got opportunities there as well. But yeah, I think Pinamonti's been quite quietly, shall we say, good this season.
Yeah, well, it's just huge for them, like the ownership changeover. And I think when Gilardino was sacked, I think I at least was saying, oh, maybe it's a bit harsh. Maybe it's a bit harsh on him that they've sacked him. Is this like the right time? But it definitely feels like they've so far been vindicated in their decision. And even if it is just that new manager bounce, it was a very well-timed and importantly timed new manager bounce to keep them out of the fight, right? So hopefully Vieira can continue that. But let's look at Napoli. And well, the question is Kvaratskhelia ever going to get his place back? David Neres has started, and Andrea, another assist for him, tearing it up. He has to stay in this team. Maybe Politano finally gets dropped when Kvaratskhelia comes back.
I mean, it makes complete sense that he gets dropped and Kvaratskhelia plays with Neres. I don't understand. But Conte is just so stubborn, honestly. Like, it just makes so much sense. And in fact, Neres is better on the right anyway, so it makes even more sense. But yeah, no, incredible game again. And again, keeping his place. And again, it makes me question if he's in this team before, Napoli, I feel like would be in a different position. Kind of the feel of them, at least. But yeah, I think the other issue is that, again, that second half is a worry. And it's happened too many times now. Like, Genoa could have easily equalised, a different game. But again, I think for other personnel, I question as well. Like, you look at the back, Rugmani last season was poor, still finds himself in the team. Juan Jesus, who's literally, I don't know how he's still there. But you've got Rafa Marin in sub, who really looks like a good prospect from Madrid. Madrid have a buyback clause for him as well, so clearly they rate him that he could succeed. So I kind of question some of the personnel choices that Conte does. But overall, yeah, they were quite fortunate in the end. But this bright spark is Neres, and that's something that they've got to kind of look at. And obviously, the Kvaratskhelia thing for me is the other big worry because he's such an important player for that team. Even if he's off, it's still a big worry. So even if someone else is stepping up for him, they really need to see him start performing as well. But again, stylistically, it's the question if he's fitting in or if it's something to do with the kind of balance of the team. But a lot of questions need to be answered for that to work.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. But like Adam, do you think Conte needs to be doing more for this team to be killing off games. Like, because as you said, in the first 20 minutes, Napoli raced into a 2-goal lead. It looked like they were really going to control the game, and then it just kind of stopped. It slowed down, and everything went a bit pedestrian. Does he need to, we know Conte's a little bit conservative, right? Loves a 1-0. They've had lots of 1-0s this year. Does he need to be a little bit like, let the chains off a little bit and try and get that third goal that just puts it to bed? You can make your substitutions at 60 minutes, and you can start resting players. Like, it feels like they're just not killing games off.
Yeah, there's definitely an argument. I don't know if it's because of how rigid the formation is that restricts the kind of ability to kind of go about their kind of chasing or finishing off games, should we say. So for me, I think we might see that being addressed in January, potentially. I'm not going to say it's definitely going to happen because we know Conte likes to spend a lot more money than he's given, to be fair. But there is definitely that kind of aspect, I suppose, really. And we've alluded to it in the past, Rory, where there doesn't seem to be much of a plan B, like when it comes to games like this. So I do think he is trying his best with the group of players that he's got, but I don't think he's necessarily happy with them. It wouldn't surprise me if we start seeing maybe some movement as well with maybe the lesser players in the squad. So the likes of Folarunshu, for example, maybe, for example, Diego Simeone's son, or maybe moving on as well, Giovanni. So I think there's going to be a few potential moves in this window that might allow Conte to add that depth. Even Raspadori, for example, is another one that we forget he is there and he's not really being utilised. I don't think Conte really likes or trusts him to do the role that he wants to kind of deploy. So I suspect he'll be another one that potentially might move on in this January transfer window. So yeah, I think that there is that aspect, but I think we've been all saying it this season at some point. So not surprising though.
Well, if there's one club that's definitely going to be active in January, is any club that Antonio Conte's at. So we know there's going to be some action there. But I do also have to just tip my hat to Zambo Anguissa. 2 goals in 2 games. Yeah. He's on fire. Lovely little run and finish here. Like, really powerful move. Absolutely love that he's in form. And Rahmani, of course, with the second goal. But a big win for Napoli there. They did get the job done, just not as convincing as we'd maybe hope. But talking about convincing, let's go to the Stadio Olimpico. I really thought Roma would not keep a clean sheet here. Roma 5, Parma 0. Adam, I'm going to go to you first. Parma, their defence, absolutely horrendous. They're on a bit of a run now. Is it alarming?
I think it's Parma this season summed up pretty much, that they will go through these kind of bits of form where they just don't win games. I've put here, just as my comments, Parma's defence was shambolic, because the 2 penalties that give away were just absolute travesties in terms of how not to defend in those circumstances. I mean, especially when you've got like a clever Dybala running into the box and Balog just sticks his leg out without any kind of thought about it. Yeah, it was pretty terrible from that point of view. And not surprising, really. I think this was positive from a Roma perspective, but I don't know if you should read too much into the result itself because of how open Parma were on the occasions. I have to say, though, the finishes were absolutely sublime, especially Salamakas for the second one. That was absolutely impeccable control to get on the volley and somehow get it in the near post, I think it was, for Suzuki. How did he not keep it out? I don't know. But we also have to hand our caps to Dybala for the way that he set up Dovbyk. I think Dovbyk almost screwed it up, to be fair.
He tried his hardest.
But that was a delightful touch, especially in the week when there was a lot of noise about Ranieri being questioned about Dybala's future and him alluding to the fact of, you know, if he feels that kind of deeply, then he's allowed to leave. Interesting. And I did see a little clip, which was as they were kind of celebrating to the curva, Dybala kind of walks towards Ranieri. Ranieri kind of says, well done, in some words, but he kind of completely blanks him. So I don't know if relationships are there, to be fair, and I wonder if that will be maybe one of the last few appearances we see Dybala in a Roma shirt now.
I think he really picks his moments, Dybala, doesn't he? Like, I think he really, like, when he wants to, he steps up. Because I saw, like, the first half of this game, and he was just running through the team. Looked like he was completely dominating the game. Like, the game was bending to his will, but he's been anonymous for the past, well, this season, right? And you're thinking, he definitely picks his moments. Like, okay, the headlines are building up. Right, okay, I'll score a couple of goals, get an assist. The fans love me, and then they'll all be on my side. I feel like, but it was a very, very impressive performance. I wanted to, Andrea, to talk about Salamakers, because last week we were talking about, we forgot that he was at the club. We forgot that he'd moved to Roma. But since he's come back, he's been pretty solid for them. Like, he had a decent season at Bologna last year. Could he be a useful player for Roma? And like, could you see him kicking on and being like a key player?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think other issue was before they were trying him actually as the attacking on the right hand side of the attack, which wouldn't work. And him playing in midfield is a lot better. We can see him a lot actually have do the way he's got a good cross on him as well. He can join up with the attack. He can help defensively as well. He's he's got Serie A experience at a really good level, and that's key I think for Roma at this point in time. As we said before, Roma are a bit of a mess right now. They're just playing for pride at this point. So someone like him just to steady the ship is perfect as well. And yeah, he's been consistent in those performances as well when he plays that position. So if they stick him there and keep him there, I think he'll do good. But just not trying him up front with Zovic. I didn't understand that before,
Yeah.
or in goal or anything like that. Just stick him there. But yeah, he's done good though. Yeah, he's doing good.
No, I always enjoy seeing when he plays well. He's a great player to watch. I think he's very entertaining. So I always enjoy seeing him do well. But Adam, this is a big morale boost for Rome, right? A 5-goal win is always a big deal, right? Even if Parma were more than accommodating, could this be a bit of a springboard, or are Roma just going to continue to be inconsistent? I think they're going to continue to be inconsistent, but could this be a springboard?
I agree with you. I think it will be inconsistent. I don't think we're going to see any bit of form together, to be brutally honest. If I remember rightly, I think they're away to Milan in the next game, which has definitely got draw written all over it, to be fair.
That could go anywhere.
That could be definitely 0-0 at the San Siro. So don't expect any fireworks from that game. But yeah, I just think Ranieri's still trying to find his feet there. Yeah, like I say, Parma were very accommodating on the day. So let's not read too much into it, Rory.
Suzuki, I invested so many stocks into you, and you're really
You
letting me
did.
down. Really letting me down. I need him to turn this season around at some point. But let's go quickly through the other results. Venezia 2, Cagliari 1. Absolutely huge win here for Venezia down at the bottom of the table. It puts them 1 point behind Cagliari. Like, Andrea, this is a massive win. The goals from Zamprano and Sverko. Our favourite, Odistiano, had a goal disallowed, but this just shows that Venezia have got a bit of fight. They're not quite done yet. Maybe they can make a fight of it.
Yeah, I really like it. I think gives me that kind of Salernitana vibe when they were like struggling at the bottom as well, and they somehow, yeah, I think they've kind of realised as well now that the pressure's off them. They're definitely the main favourite to go down. It's everyone's first choice when we're talking about who's going to go down. But yeah, this type of games, they're so vital, the home games. They've picked a few wins up now in kind of recent games as well, which is key as well. So we'll see how it goes, but it's going to be game by game. Literally, when you're performing like Venezia at the moment, it's game by game. But it's positive, and that's the main thing.
No, absolutely. And another great performance from Filip Stankovic. He made 6 saves again this game. Really, really absolutely key for Venezia. And we talked about it last week, but the fact they finally brought him in and got rid of that other guy has made a huge difference to their defensive output. Milan lost they beat Verona 1-0, but everyone's moaning like it was a loss. Reinder's getting a goal. He's been their only decent player so far, Adam. Everything is burning down at that club. I saw comments from the owner this week talking about how the bottom line is the priority, and Inter won the Scudetto, but they nearly went bankrupt. So is it worth it? Like, how long can all of this last at Milan? It's all going to come to a head at some point, right?
I think it already is at a head. Obviously they had their supposed celebrations that were supposed to take place at the Genoa game. Obviously the factor around Maldini not being or rejecting essentially the invitation to join them to celebrate it. But yeah, Cardinale not being there as well. There's a lot of noise at the moment already. Then you've got the Leao and Hernandez appreciation loving at the moment, which they seem to be backing each other up, which might kind of force a move in January transfer window, especially off the back of Jimenez's performance at left back as well. I thought he was quite good for Milan, especially when he was having to fill in the void for Leao when he went off injured. But I think I want to also call out that Gabbia's return was quite critical. I think he's formed a formidable partnership with Thiaw and Fofana as well in that middle of the park, showing signs of what potential he's got. So there are kind of positivity around Milan. I think you've got to look at it in the grand scheme of things, but I think we still come to the same conclusions in terms of the footballing side. I don't think Fonseca's got the full trust of that squad at the moment. I don't think necessarily he's the man with a lot of ideas as well. I think he fails to implement those kind of thoughts across to the players, and I think that's why they struggle in games at the moment. But it's probably not helped by the likes of Zlatan and it's his ego, and obviously the fact that he has a meddling kind of forte about his application in terms of his role, and probably getting involved in the training grounds. It wouldn't surprise me if he has a training kit when he turns up at the grounds himself sometimes. So yeah, not good times at Milan. But the only other positive I'd say is Reinders signing a new contract, because a lot of clubs were interested in him. What baffled me was that with his new contract, he's still earning less than the likes of Ruben Loftus-Cheek, which maybe goes to show you potentially Cardinale talking about, money and sums. Like, maybe he's got his priorities in the wrong place, because they're spending a lot of money by the sounds of it on wages like Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who I don't recall being quite as influential maybe in terms of the Milan kind of games that he's had. So yeah,
I think Reinders needs a new agent. That's horrendous.
Yeah.
A big win for Milan, but nobody's happy. Elsewhere, Torino, we officially have the most boring team in the league. Torino 0, Bologna 2. Frig me, they cannot do anything. Bologna did miss a penalty early on, but Delinga and Pobega, since we laughed at him, he's been in great form, scored a few goals, scored a great goal here to deliver a 2-0 win for Bologna. Lecce lost 2-1 to Lazio, Castellanos with a penalty, and Marusic with a banger in the 8th minute. And Lecce down to 10 men after Gilbert decided that he fancied a stint in goal. You can't really blame him, but it was about as obvious a red card as you're going to get. And we banked, guys, on Monza Juve being terrible, and it doesn't look like it's been great, but Weston McKennie has just put them 1-0 up. I think that could be the only goal of the game, but who knows? So that is the Serie A weekend. I think that was all of the results. So guys, we're going to take a very quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk what everyone's excited about, the opening of the January transfer window. Let's do it. Get that checkbook out. It's January, guys. Welcome back. And we are going to be talking about all our transfer predictions for the January transfer window. We're going to start towards the bottom of the table with the strugglers and the teams that we think maybe need to add a few additions in maybe a few positions. I promise we're not going to talk about Verona and their 23 changes for too long. We're not going to go through all of them, maybe just one or two. But Adam, I'm going to let you kick us off with the first team that you would like to talk about down there and a player you think they could bring in.
Yeah, so let's start at the very bottom as they currently stand, and that's Monza, with very little wins to their name as well. And yeah, I think this is a very testing time for Nesta, but what is very clear is that they are lacking a presence up top. Milan Djuric is not the man that's going to score you a bag full of goals, let alone, like, say, 5.
So I was going to say, even a cap full would be
probably
nice.
a compliment to him if he scores 5 goals in a season. So yeah, I just feel like every time that I've seen them, they've not been terrible. I think Nesta is, getting a philosophy across, and, it's not for the lack of trying in some of the games, but they are just lacking that kind of quality up top. Now, I've had to think about this realistically as well, because I think Monza's budget is not going to be the same as, say, Napoli's or Inter's in that respect. So I've got to be realistic. So I've gone for a name that we all know, otherwise nicknamed as Il Pistolera. He's having a great season in Turkey, and that is Krzysztof Piątek, because he knows what it means to be in a club in North Italy anyway. And I think, given that he's on the rich vein of form, he's someone that's a bit more agile, more likely to stick his foot in and, get scruffy goals at the same time. So he knows this league inside out. He's the experience that Monza could do with. I think that would be a really good one to bring in. As an outsider, I'm just thinking outside the box here, but Domenico Berardi from Sassuolo. You've got another really good player. He's obviously a bit different to your traditional out-and-out striker, but again, he'd probably add that bit of dimension to their game as well. So whether they could get that over the line, given Sassuolo are doing so well in Serie B, is another question, but I know Berardi is very keen on making a move anyway, so let's see if he actually would entertain a move to Monza. But I think with someone like Nesta, he needs to go for someone that is experienced and likely to get them just enough to kind of survive. I think that's the key bit here. But I'll put it out to you guys if you think there's anyone better that they could approach. I think I'd struggle maybe Beto, like you suggested, Rory offline. I think that's maybe a likely potential target, but I don't want to steal your thunder, Rory.
Well, no, that is my one plan for all these teams. Just go and get Beto on loan, because I feel like it's clearly not working at Everton. I think obviously the gap at Monza is a striker, right? And I think the decision they have to make is maybe the short-term deal for Piontek, like a loan deal, end of the season, throw a bit of money at it, but not loads, see if he can just get them out of the shit. Or do you try and prepare yourself for Serie B and think maybe we can get 6 months out of a player, but have someone that down the league, if we go to Serie B, could thrive next year? The only player that's kind of stood out for me is he's currently at Spezia, Francesco Pio, another Esposito. But Francesco Pio Esposito is currently this season 9 goals and an assist for Spezia, 19 years old. Maybe you go in, roll the dice, you give him a kind of the opportunities for him to come in and be the guy that can make the difference. And if he doesn't keep you up, he's got another season in Serie B where maybe you can, and you're kind of investing in that future. So it's kind of which direction they want to go in, I suppose. But it's very clear the fact that they need attackers. Like, they have 14 goals in the seasons in the league so far. It's just not enough to keep you anywhere near safe. Like, Andrea, how do you feel Monza need to approach this market?
Yeah, I'd agree. It's a thing we all established as the number 9 kind of. I've actually said just from, well, it's not to be like Fiorentina links, but I was thinking Kwame at Fiorentina, because I think Fiorentina are going to look for a backup striker, which is probably going to push Kwame out. He hasn't really been the greatest. And I think Monza like that type of player who at least have Serie A experience, let's say. And he's he's one of those players who can play up front. He can play on either side. Perhaps a loan deal or something to the end of the season. I just think it might be like a smart business to kind of add to their depth. So I would look at someone like that. But I certainly agree with what Adam was saying. I think that's a great shout as well, the striker situation. But I think, just someone like that would kind of add to the Serie A experience. I think Adam alluded to as well as key. I think the Serie A experience could be crucial for them. So something along those lines.
I like it. Nice. Andrea, I'm going to let you suggest the next club and where they need to address.
So I would go for Como. And I think the issue with, Como is similar to Monza, which I think they also need a striker. I personally would, I think we were talking about this offline, and I was thinking at the time as well, Bamford to Como. I think it would be a nice story. I think Bamford's still got something in him to offer, and I think it's at that level for Como. I think he could be that real kind of clinical striker that they haven't had, and I think he'd chip in some goals, and I think it would be such a low fee possible loan. I think it'd be a smart move. I think like we said, we've got to be realistic with what these teams have budget wise and what kind of players would kind of consider the move. And I think he'd be perfect. He's kind of out of place at the moment, and he is a proven goal scorer in previous years gone by as well for Leeds. He knows where the net is, and I think he's kind of agile as well, which Cornwall. I think that's what they struggle with Belotti up front, with somebody who's a bit slow, so someone a bit more that's a bit more technical up front, but also with experience as well, maybe to kind of push them ahead. I think he could be like a good match for them.
Oh, I love that shout. And I think Como have that kind of star quality in the club. Like, if you know what I mean, there's a bit of that PR, the Cesc Fabregas in charge. They've got a bit more money as opposed to the other clubs around them. I think that's definitely doable. I'm just going to throw Dele Alli in the hat because I'm going to continue to push this transfer rumor. He was in the stadium the other week. He's officially left Everton. I think he could absolutely thrive there. I think he's kind of like humble enough and in a stage in his career where he's not going to go in and be like, I want 120 grand a week. I think he's going to be quite realistic about where he is in his career, what he can get. And I think that would be a really nice environment for him to just kind of fall in love with football again and be like the main character. Like, he would be by far the biggest name in that squad. He could have a really key role. The only issue is that Nico Paz has been one of their best players and they're kind of the same position. But I do kind of have a little feeling that Dele Alli, we could see him rock up in Como. But Adam, who did you have rocking up at the lake? It's a beautiful place to play.
Yeah, I don't know who would necessarily fill that void that Andrea alluded to, but just for a bit of variation, I put him down as a Genoa target here, but Wilfried Zaha, because he is being isolated at Galatasaray. Como is the type of club that is likely to be able to afford his wages, I feel. And just for someone that needs a bit of a break at the moment, he's not having much success in France at the moment, so he'll be recalled by all accounts, and Galatasaray aren't keen, they're happy for him to go. So I think that would be potentially a good addition to that squad. And he offers a bit more. So, he can play on the wings. You could imagine him on the counter-attack in a lot of these games. That could be the bit of quality that Como needs for this second half of the season. I mean, if they could pull it off, that would be amazing. That's all I would say.
Nice. Well, I'm going to throw the next club in because we need to address them, but Verona, obviously they need to really, really improve their defence and the amount of goals they concede. I'm going to throw in, because I've seen him live and he's absolutely thriving in Serie B at the moment, Demba Tiam, who is currently the goalkeeper for Juve Stabia. He's had very good seasons in Serie C and Serie B. He's an outstanding goalkeeper. He's only 26 years old, I want to say, 26 years old. Very young goalkeeper, very good. His shot stopping is unbelievable. He's absolutely huge. I've seen him play a few times and he's just like the control of his area. I think like Montipo is he's had his issues. He's quite an unreliable goalkeeper. Obviously, the defence in front of him doesn't help him. But I think maybe having a goalkeeper that's a bit more up and coming and someone who's off a string of good seasons, I think could really be a clever move for Verona. Again, if it looks like they might go down, if it looks like they're preparing for Serie B, having a younger goalkeeper that not just this season but across seasons can be kind of your number one. He's someone that I've been watching for a while. I'm really hoping he gets a big move. Weirdly, he's on loan from Spal to Juve Stabia. Clearly, they can't afford to buy him. So I think it's time that someone came in and got him, because I think he's been an outstanding goalkeeper for a good few years. I said that because obviously it's their defence that needs addressing. But Andrea, I'm going to go to you first. Who did you think that Verona could pick up to stop them conceding 8 goals a game? Only one against, Milan. That's kind of a promise, I suppose.
I think that's a good shot, actually. I actually went for a bit of experience one for the goalkeeper's sake. I went for a Terracciano, another Fiorentina one, but again, someone with experience who could just do the business till the end of the season or something. If they went to Serie B again, he'd be someone that might be quite competent there. But I like the suggestion of a younger goalkeeper. But I actually had someone in midfield, actually, the main target, and it's someone that they had previously, and that's Runcho at Napoli. I actually think a bit liveliness in midfield. I think a bit of energy in midfield. I think they lack a bit in the central area in particular. Out wide, they're great. I think centrally they could add some sort of box to box kind of play. Someone that can drive with the ball. And I think it was his best spell was at Verona. He was really good there that loan season. So I think maybe for his sake as well, to kind of reignite his kind of thing. Let's remember as well, Spalletti was picking him as well, in previous Italian. So he sees something in him, and I think he obviously will try and want to get back into the squad. So he's got to start playing, and I think going back to Verona might help kind of restart his career basically. So I think that was my kind of main target. But I do definitely agree. The main target for the club should be a goalkeeper. So I'm with you, Rory.
I love that you're just suggesting the players you don't want of Fiorentina anymore. Kwame and Terracciano. You're like, can anybody take them? You can have them. We don't want them. Adam, who are you suggesting for Verona?
Just to help on that merry-go-round of Fiorentina, players to get out of the club. The reality is, I feel with Hellas, it's the centre-back position is the issue. So Andrea probably will be rubbing his hands when I say Pogancic on a loan for 6 months, because I think actually he hasn't really delivered since his move to Lecce. I think he needs potentially some game time, and this would be a good opportunity. I think he's probably more solid than the opportunities in terms of the options that Hellas have got right now. I'd say automatically he's an upgrade on Davidovic, who I think is a donkey. So I think that's a really good potential there for Fiorentina as well as Hellas there, and we shall see about the rest. But I do like that shout on Fodoruncu because I have him for a different team. But good shout. Yeah,
no, absolutely. It would be good to see him enjoying his football again. Before we move towards the top of the table, because I'm very aware of time, are there any other clubs? Like, pick one more club we want to talk about. Adam, I'm going to let you choose one more club.
I've just said Calgary. I feel that they need probably an attacking, kind of combative kind of midfielder, and I'm going to use Fodoruncu because that's the name that I've got written down here, because unfortunately I can't think of anyone alternatively, but I feel that's probably the dynamics that David Nicola is missing at the moment. So obviously maybe a more dynamic forward would be the answer, but I would go Fodoruncu for Calgary.
Okay, and Andrea, one more transfer to suggest at the bottom before we move up the table.
Same club or different club? I don't.
You choose different club. Let's do different club. That's very
Okay. I think it's quite a predictable one, but I like the idea of Venezia going for Belotti. I just think he's a player that we know he can't run. He can't really just stick the ball in the box and he'll score. And I think Venezia could you really utilize that in
hmm
games, certain games. And I think he'd actually score some goals. I'm not saying he's going to score loads, but he'd definitely score maybe five, five
Yeah.
to ten. And I think it'd be quite a useful signing for them. So that was my for Venezia.
No, I like that a lot. We need to find a place for him so we can finish
Yeah.
on a high note. We really need that to happen. I think Serie A needs that to happen. But yeah, we're going to move. I love that. That is the kind of business at the bottom of the table. We're going to move up the table and go to the title challengers, I suppose. Now we kind of talked about it at the top of the show. Atalanta, I want to say kind of early here. I don't think they need to touch anything.
Yeah.
Don't do a thing.
Yeah.
The chemistry seems really good. You don't want to upset anything.
Yeah.
Just see if you can hold on to Edison. If you can, then just continue. So I don't know if anybody wants to talk about Atalanta or you can just move on to another club. Let's move
I
on
just
to
had
another club.
one shout. If they did move on Edison and a few midfielder, just personally because I feel like this player would excel with Asperini's manager, would be Ricci at Torino. I
Oof.
think he'd be beautiful at Atalanta
Mm-hmm.
and for Italy as well. So I'd love to see that happen. But I don't know if it would make sense to do it at January right now. But it'd be one that I
Yeah.
think would look really well at Atalanta at some point.
No, absolutely. Absolutely love it. Yeah, I forgot about Richie. They had such a good start to the season, didn't they? It really
Yeah.
has gone sour. Well, let's go to the club that we think is probably going to be most active. Adam, let's go to Napoli. What do you think they need to address? Where do they need to make additions? Where is Conte going to be spending the mega bucks?
Well, it does sound inevitably that there will be definitely two potential signings in this window. So let's get them out of the way. Boni from Parma and Dorgu from Lecce. I think they're the two likely candidates that have been talked
very
about
good
already in
business.
that first half of the season. But what I actually feel is missing, and it was really highlighted in the Lazio game, is they need a bit more of a dynamic midfielder, that someone that has got that kind of energy, the kind of levels that Dele Basharu kind of displayed personally. I'm not going to suggest him because I don't think that's realistic given Lazio in that kind of area as well. So they need someone like that, Bruno Gomes, who's got that kind of power and maybe just a bit of control in games. So I've gone for two really outsiders here that I don't know if it's realistic, but given where they are right now, could be an opportunity to maybe bring on a free transfer, and that is Marco Verratti and N'Golo Kante, because I think both would understand what Conte wants. In Verratti, you've got a player that understands Serie A and obviously would love to be like in his kind of latter days, should we say, and see it at least in an N'Golo Kante. Conte works with him at Chelsea, but just someone outside of the mix because he's not getting much game time at Lille at the moment. But Angel Gomez, I think he's the type of player that could kind of bring the defensive kind of duties and progress the ball at least into the kind of third half of the pitch. So I think that's an outsider, maybe on a loan spell. I think I was just trying to look at it realistically in terms of, does Di Laurentiis spend any money? I think he doesn't, but I think he'll be subject to a lot of the moves. The likes of Simeone, like I mentioned, Folorunsho, for example. We shall see. Raspadori is another candidate that could maybe move in this window as well. That's who I kind of targeted for Napoli.
Nice, I love that. Yeah, I really like the idea of Verratti finally making his debut in Serie A. We need to see it happen. Like going straight from Serie B to PSG is so wild. So I think any excuse to get Verratti in Serie A, absolutely all for that. Andrea, for Napoli, who are you? If you're De Laurentiis, who are you approaching?
Yeah, I think the Dorgu signing would be perfect. If it wasn't that left wing back, I definitely think they've got to sort out because Spinazzola looks like he's going to leave. The rumor is Baraghi Spinazzola swap, which I think would be really weird. I don't know if it'd go well for either team. I don't think it would, but that's the rumor as well that potentially could happen. But I would say, I think we already mentioned it before, but I would actually see Berardi at Napoli on that right hand side. I think that would be a smart move as well. Or the other one, I feel like Adam's right in the midfield as well. I'd also like to see like an attacking kind of player from deep. So I was looking at like a potential like Fazzini at Empoli would be quite a cool one.
Love
But
that guy.
I just worry that Conte would discipline the shit out of him basically and ruin his like expressiveness on the pitch. Because he's really good, expressing himself. But I worry about that. But at the same time, I feel like he'd suit that kind of trio in midfield, kind of from deep. for Napoli. So yeah, that would be my suggestion.
No, I absolutely love that. I think, the creative midfielder is definitely what they need. Like Lobotka, it feels like there's a lot of weight on his shoulders, and they need someone that can just vary it a little bit. For the next club, let's go for Inter, I suppose. I feel like with Inter, it's always a striker. They always just need that extra striking option, right? You've got Thuram, you've got Martinez, but Arnautovic and Taremi just haven't really hit it. I think one of the players that they could potentially target to come in is someone we've talked about. If I'm Inter, I'm looking at getting Raspadori. I'm looking at trying to get a deal for Raspadori and being like, okay, he can be our backup. And if he thrives, if he does hit form, you've got another striker there that can genuinely play in that system as well. He's quick. He's like technical. I think he can really fill in that role of Thuram maybe. Like, he's not quite as physical, but with the pace, I think he can really thrive in that system. So if I'm Inter, I'm looking at a striker like Raspadori and being like, well, look, Napoli obviously don't want him. Maybe we can cut a deal. We know that they love a bargain. Maybe on loan with an obligation. They do love that, Inter. But I think that would be a striker that I'd be looking at. Again, Serie A experience and someone that, like, you can finally get Arnautovic out the door and be like, okay, we've moved on, right? But Andre, I'm going to go for you first with Inter. Where do you think they need to address?
I agree. So I think attacking, and I had two suggestions. I had attacking, and I also think a centre back as well. I think Acerbi's kind of like on his last days.
Yeah.
We've got De Vrij that's been stepping in that hasn't been. He's been good, but again, he's someone that is not long term. So I'll start with that. So for centre back, I actually thought someone young that they could kind of bring into the team with Bastoni around them. So I was looking at Coppola at Verona. I feel like he could be such a great kind of player to kind of start to bring in, not to start straight away, but to start kind of like bringing in into those games where they're going to win comfortably. And I feel like he could learn a lot from Bastoni and players around him like that. Be that middle one, be that kind of centre back in the middle of the three. I feel like I think he suits Inter to a T, to be honest. And my other suggestion, I agree with you. I think they need an attacking option. But my wild card is, and I feel like this could be possible, I don't know, would be someone who we know in Serie A hasn't played much at his current new club, Issa at Liverpool. Get him on loan, 6 months. You know what he can offer on his day. I know he's not been on the greatest of form, but again, it's just in that attacking front. I feel sometimes they're a bit static. If they had someone that a bit more energy, a bit more drive, like last year when we saw Thuram running the channels, I feel like they've lacked that, and I feel like Chiesa would do that hard work. And again, someone you just sub on 20 minutes to go and give you everything and see what happens. So I feel like it could be like a smart, cheap move, for them. I think an interesting move, and potentially see if they get an option to buy. Who knows?
Yeah,
Liverpool
no,
might be
I absolutely love that. Seeing the Juve fans' reactions would be priceless as well. I'd absolutely love that.
I like that.
We've got to see that, I suppose. Adam, for Inter, what did you see, or what do you see happening?
I think a lot will depend on the finance side of things. I think that plays a huge part. There's been rumours of the likes of Jan Bissek potentially being kind of used as a make weight to fund a lot of the transfer activities. We know about the links with the likes of Jonathan David, for example, entering his last 6 months of his contract. Wouldn't surprise me if they kind of maybe go in there and offer maybe a loan to buy maybe a reduced fee, but a potential there. But much on your lines, I did put Raspadori. The other one that's probably unrealistic at this point would be Victor Osimhen, because I think he would propel them to that kind of elevate them to that level like we saw when Eto'o joined the club, for example, or, kind of give them the kind of little bit of an edge over teams. The other suggestion I had, and this is going to be a running theme with the kind of top six, is I don't know how many people know about the situation at Lyon, but they need to make some money come the kind of end of season to budget or balance the books, essentially. So Malik Fofana, who is the left-sided attacker, is a really young prospect at the moment, and I think Inter could take advantage. They've been known for doing this kind of business where they take advantage of other clubs maybe struggling financially. So I think that's an opportunity. But one outsider to this all was to the point Andrea made about the centre-back position. And I thought a player that really fits what Inzaghi tries to instill in his centre-backs is someone that is really good in terms of their duties at the back, but also forthcoming in terms of attacking play. And that's Sam Bekmar at Bologna. I think he's a really up-and-coming centre-back. I think he's progressed under Motta. This season, we've seen a little bit less of it, but I think of late, we're starting to see him come back into the fold.
That's a good shout. I like that.
I think that could be a good bit of business as well. Someone that's young at the right age. If you've got Inzaghi to get the best out of him as well, at the right price as well, I think that's a huge opportunity. So for me, I went with Beckham, I think is how you pronounce it, from Bologna.
He's been really good since he came into the league. I remember doing a bit of a report on him when Bologna signed him, and he's really impressed me since he come in. I like that shout. I like that shout a lot. When you mentioned Leon, I got excited and thought you were going to suggest Lacazette, and then I just started thinking about Lacazette in an Inter shirt and I was daydreaming a little bit, maybe. Adam, I'm going to let you suggest the next team we talk about at the top.
Let's go then with, I feel we need to bring them into the equation, although they're not necessarily in that top half, but Juve. Because I feel...
Right, there's another half an hour to go through.
We're probably banging our heads, but I'm going to get it very quick and to the point. They need a striker that fits Motta's system, right? And I'm not going to suggest they get Xerxes here. The kind of ideal here would have been Gabriel Jesus had he not gone on that kind of vein of form that he's doing for Arsenal.
Yeah, you're not having him now. Just sod off.
Even when he wasn't scoring goals, I think that would have fitted what Motta's trying to achieve. Someone that's hardworking, runs the channels, etc. But I've actually gone with Lacazette because there is
not you.
I'll
have him in Serie A. That's fine.
He is a realistic opportunity because he is high on the wage bill. Obviously, there was rumours of potentially even Real Madrid sniffing around his services for this January transfer window. But I think he would be a great fit for what Juve want him to do in terms of that Motta style of player. And he does score important goals, and I think that would really fit and give a bit more kind of pressure on the likes of Vlahovic as well as Milik when he does come back into the fold. So I think that's a realistic target. But there you go. That's my kind of suggestion for Juve.
I absolutely love that. Don't expect him to run much, but I'll always love Lacazette. He does have a pretty good hit rate. His numbers at Lyon are mental as well, like genuinely mental.
Genuinely.
I'd love to see him in Serie A. But Andrea, where do you think Juve address this striking issue? Is it about getting Vlahovic off the books first, or do they have the ability to bring in someone to support him?
I think they've got to try and stick it out to the end of the season with him as like the main guy. But at the same time, they need someone that in Serie A that can that's kind of bit proven. So I actually thought of, I don't know if it is possible, but it might be an interesting one for possibly a low fee as well, would be Krstovic at Lecce. I think it could be a really cool one, like out of nowhere. And I feel like these big teams always go for those kind of big names. I feel like someone like him who's really, really like done really well for Lecce, I think could easily come on and, score some goals. He could even start games if Vlahovic isn't. I think he's reliable, and I think that's what they need. They need someone that's reliable. So like I said, could be as well, to be fair, because, the experience. So I feel like someone like that, you can play two up top with him as well. I think it'd be a great shout for that specifically. I also had one more position on them because I thought they need kind of someone to replace Bremer. I feel like they've missed that kind of like centre back, obviously, and you've seen it with the way they've struggled defensively. So I've always been a big fan of him because he actually joined Fiorentina when he was young but didn't get the opportunity and went on and he's done really well. Is David Hanko at Feyenoord. I really like the fact that he's like a ball playing centre back, modern. He can fill in at left back as well. I think he would tick a lot of boxes for what Juve need. When Cambiaso's been a bit injured, they haven't really replaced. He maybe could fill in there as well. Just mainly, I think for them, a centre back who's like a ball playing one on that left hand side, left footed. I think he's someone they really need, and he could cover that kind of Bremer situation right now. And I feel like he could form a really good formidable partnership with Bremer as well when he does come back as well. So I'd look at someone like that. The only issue with Hanko is I feel like it will be a big fee. So I don't know if Juve will be up for it. I don't think Feyenoord will settle for cheap because he's an international. He's got so much experience he probably has still a few years on his contract. So that'd be the question. But certainly if they want to step up and really challenge for that top four, they need to spend big on someone like that to kind of add to that quality in the first team.
Yeah, well, we were kind of talking about how their defence, when you look at it, doesn't really look like a title challenge in defence, and you're like, okay, guys, where's this going? I do also love the idea of Krstovic getting a big move, because I will always be a champion for him, so fingers crossed he can get that move. But I think the last team we should probably talk about towards the top, should we talk about Milan? God knows what their transfer approach is going to be. But who did we have down? Obviously, it's all the Zlatan show, and they can't really agree, and their recruitment hasn't been as great. But Adam, any hope for them to turn around this season?
I mean, this is the thing that I kind of alluded to here in my notes was there's already been rumours of Jadon Philogene being kind of used as a opportunity to bring into club, and they would swap the like of Chukwueze, for example, because I think they're looking at their creativity and a spark like to replace maybe long term someone like a Rafael Leal. So I've actually put as the alternative again, raiding Lyon, is Rayan Cherki, who obviously has been linked with potentially analysing as an Italian international. They could get him on cheap, by all accounts. 30 million is all you're going to need. Whether that's something that Milan can definitely get their hands on, I don't know. But as an alternative, I put Saeed Benrahma, who obviously everyone from a Premier League perspective knows from his Brentford days.
Not
and
heard
West
that name for a
Ham
very long time.
point of view. Yeah, and I think, again, he's a player that would add a bit more depth to Milan as well from his creativity, but also his goal contribution as well. So I think those two would spring to mind. Whether they could realistically get them is another thing, but I've just put that down given the Jadon Philogene kind of links, and I don't know if there's any legs in that one, but that sounds like his agent maybe turning up at the training ground again.
I was just about to say, the beauty of Philogene is you don't even have to invite his agent. He's just stood outside anyway. Like, you don't even have to call him.
Exactly.
So the deal's halfway done. Like, yeah, no, I do like that shout, although I feel like him and Chukwueze are just like swapping one and getting another one, right? I don't know, like, they're 100%. So similar in profile. I think you might get the same level of consistency as well. I'm not sure. But Andrea, how do you see Milan approaching this window? What is Zlatan thinking?
I think similar to Adam, I agree. I think something creative out wide as well, or someone creative in general in the final third. I was thinking of another interesting one would be Suslov at Verona. Take a punt on him. Verona are going to sell their team anyway, so you might as well pick one of them. They're going to have a quick sell soon. So see if you get it for cheap. No, I just like the fact that, like, I feel like he could be that. I feel like when they had Brahim Diaz, Milan, I feel like he could kind of fit that void that they kind of lack when he's left. That kind of player in that attacking third. I thought he would be quite an interesting one. My other one, and this one was a bit of a wild card, but I feel like why not, would be I'd knock on Juventus's door and ask for Fagioli, see what they do, what be open to, like a loan move, or I just think that would help Milan. Someone in that midfield that can dictate the game, kind of control it, calm it down, because I feel like sometimes it gets too frantic. And although Fofana, to be fair, did really well, and he could probably do it. I'm not fully convinced at the moment, but I feel like someone like him, he's on Spalletti's radar. He's got the talent. He's not really getting much game time at Juve. Why not give them something to tempt them with, and and even if it's just a loan to the end of the season, I just think it could be an interesting move, just something different in that midfield. Even though they've got that, and it will allow players like Reinders to really focus on the attacking third rather than that kind of issue in that midfield. So yeah, I'd say something like that.
Yeah, no, I really like that, because I was thinking, like, Milan need someone who are going to score goals, and I looked at how many striking options they've got. They can't bring in another striker. Like, they just need to make those strikers work. Like, they've got Abraham, they've got Morata, like, they've got a big stable of strikers, so they can't bring any more. But I think predicting their transfer business is going to be nigh on impossible, really. But like we did at the bottom, I'm going to let you suggest one more transfer for any of the clubs at the top. Adam, I'm going to go with you first.
I'm going to go Lazio because I want Andrea to have Fiorentina. Yeah. So for me, Lazio, I really struggle because it's stingy Lotito here. It's not necessarily going to be many transfers, but the ones that I did put here were raiding Sassuolo because I think that's realistically where they could agree some fees. So our man Loriente is a man that I think could still do a job, and I think would add that bit of depth that Baroni is looking for. Someone a bit different to Zaccagni, for example, that can play off that left-hand side, but also potentially play up top where needed to, because Bulla Di seems to be getting either injured, or if it's not him, it's Titi Castano. So I think there's an opportunity there. And I put Domenico Berardi as well, because again, you've got someone that has got that experience and can do it against a big size as well, more importantly. So I think that would add that impetus in terms of levels of quality, because I don't think defensively they need anything. And in terms of the midfield, with Ravella and Guendouzi, they seem quite solid as a base. So actually, it's more in those attacking areas that I think, and that was very evident in the Lecce game, by the way, they just lack that kind of clinical edge. So I think those two would add some really good quality to a Lazio side, especially the fact that Lotito doesn't like to spend money.
Yeah, for Lazio, I thought, is it Bijol from Udinese? I think they really
Okay.
need another centre-back. I think they need to improve their defence. They need a bit more like solidity there. I think someone like Bijol, there's been a lot of clubs looking at him. I think for Lazio, that could be the nice next step for him. Exciting young centre-back, incredible in the air. Like his success rate of winning balls in the air is incredible. I think he could really do a job for Lazio. But Andrea, who are we suggesting for Fiorentina?
So Mbappe,
Yeah. He's not happy in Madrid.
not happy. Why not? Alone.
Was seen in Florence, right?
I think offline you were saying about Shapendi, which
Yeah.
threw me off completely, would be an amazing one. But I had two kind of ones prior to it. I think striker is definitely key. And this one's an interesting one. I feel like it could pull off really well. Would be Dominic Calvert-Lewin at Everton. I think
Wow. Okay.
his contract's running out. He's someone that's really good in the air, and I think Fiorentina have lacked someone up front that can kind of, in those dogged moments where they're trying to like cross the ball in and try and in support with Keane as well. He's played with Moise Keane at Everton as well, so I think they could link up quite well together in certain games. And I feel like Palladino might look at trying to play two up front eventually. So I feel like in certain games, I feel like he'd be a good move. And my other suggestion, and I think this is a bit an unfortunate one, but I think with the whole Bobby situation, we don't know what's going to happen if he is going to return. So I feel like that's something we've got to, I think Fiorentina will have to look at kind of a possibility because I think he just brought so much energy in that midfield. And I feel like since he's not been playing, I think Fiorentina have looked quite slow in that midfield. So I was thinking Palladino knows him well. Someone that could come in straight away and do a job would be Bondo at Monza.
Nice.
I really like him. I think he's young. He's got real high potential. And I think it's similar to like you were saying about Bijol, for example. But Bondo, I think, could go even higher than Fiorentina, to be
Yeah.
honest. So again, it could be a nice little step for him for now and then build and see. But I think he'd suit kind of the style that Fiorentina play at the moment. And yeah, it could be one where he's, Mons aren't doing well, so he might be looking for a move. So they're my two suggestions, but the main one is definitely a striker.
Can I suggest a Beto on loan? I think that could be the Everton striker you end up with. But maybe that could be where it goes. No, I really like that Bondo shout because I feel like if Monza do go down, he's going to be picked up straight away.
Yeah.
Like he's one of the players that is kind of performing this year for them. But guys, that is kind of our transfer predictions, I suppose. I'm pretty excited to see what happens in this January transfer window. I don't expect to see a lot of money thrown around because it is Serie A. There's not a lot of money about. But we will be keeping our eye on Verona and just how many outgoings and ingoings there are. And if it fishes them out of the shit, we can only hope. Guys, I think we're going to kind of end the show there for now. We're taking a bit of a break. We will be back on the 7th of January so we can enjoy our Christmases. We'll let you enjoy your Christmases. Guys, anything to say before I send the listener home?
Main thing for me, Buon Natale, Merry Christmas, Feliz Navidad, and Wesołe Świąt. Wherever you are in the world, enjoy your Christmases, more importantly.
Beautiful. Nice. Andrea?
Add literally what Adam said and add a few more languages to that, which I don't know. But yes, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everyone, and thank you for listening, as always.
Beautiful. Guys, as always, thank you very much for listening. We appreciate your time. We will see you in 2025. As always, you can find us on all the social medias, basically at Anglo-Italian Pod. On Twitter or X, we're at Italian Anglo Pod. If you're on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button down here somewhere. If you're on a podcast app, give us a subscription, give us a rating, give us a review, etc. Enjoy your Christmas. Buon Natale. Happy New Year. Ci vediamo a dopo.
Buon Natale.